for clutter reduction junk removal, and we just came back from a senior living facility junk removal / move labor. Right now we're sitting at the dump. We weighed in at exactly 2,000 pounds, which is $42. Very, very cheap compared to some of you guys. But this client found me through the facility themselves. I'm there quite often. And we basically moved like 5 or 6 large items from the apartment to the next one on the second floor, which is in memory care, which is not a fun place to be because they have a alarm sounded door that you have 15 seconds to get through, and it is not a very accurate 15 seconds. And if you don't make it in there, it is a very obnoxiously loud alarm that goes off until somebody turns it off. So not the funnest of times. But anywho's, the guy told me it was going to be just a few items. It ended up being like a handful of items. And then he told me that it was just going to be like some small miscellaneous stuff going for junk removal. And I was like, all right, well, you're probably looking at like a quarter to half a load. I told him the price. He was like, okay. And I get there and he's like, yeah, so this big old entertainment center goes, the desk goes, the couch goes, the bed goes, this goes, that goes. And I was like, all right, you're going to be like a full truck. So it ended up being a full truck that's protruding out the top. So probably closer to like a load and a half realistically, but full load. And then we did a 2-hour minimum for the moving portion. So all in all, not too shabby. I wanted to talk about a couple of tips that I have learned over time and or what I like to do myself when it comes to equipment for moving. And by moving, I mean junk removal, but moving as well. So the things that I have found to be most beneficial and or help me out in specific situations are the following. Number one, a hand truck. Of course, hand truck and a four-wheeler dolly are probably going to be your most two important pieces that can pretty much handle almost any job out there. Like even if you were to just bag up a bunch of stuff in trash bags, you can pile up 2 or 3 on top of a hand truck and wheel it out to your truck. You can throw a couple of large boxes on a four-wheeler or on a hand truck. So you can pretty much do anything with it. You could even stick a mattress on top of a four-wheeler dolly just like that and just have your guys balance it and just walk it out. It's not as smooth as the next piece we're going to talk about, but it's doable. And that next piece is mattress bars. So mattress bars, I think, are pretty freaking nifty. They aren't the cheapest out there, but for the value you get, especially if you're a solo worker, it can be an immense value. So a mattress bar is a rectangular metal bar that clips onto these four-wheeler dollies on the edges, and then they create like a nice little U, and that U can be filled with pretty much anything. You can fill it up with miscellaneous stuff, but we'll keep it to the basics. Fill it up with mattresses, tabletops, glass tops, drywall pieces, wood pieces, whatever you want to kind of shove in there. You can fit a heavy, like 300-pound, floppy, flimsy, king-size mattress in there. It's going to suck getting it in, but you can get that in there and then just wheel it out to your truck. It's great if you're in storage units or senior living facilities or apartment buildings a lot. It'll really help you out when it comes to that long walk. You don't have to drag something 300 feet. And then another thing would be a Gorilla Cart. So a Gorilla Cart, you guys have probably seen me use in the beginning. I haven't used it in a while ever since I started using my speed packs again, which we'll talk about next. But the Gorilla Cart is basically, I think it's a 4 or 5 cubic foot cart. It's like 30 inches long. I think it's like 28 inches wide. And then it's like 8 inches deep. And it does have an option to kind of put little stakes in there like a pickup truck and build sides. I haven't done it with mine. But it also has a dump feature to it as well, which is pretty cool. And it has a very like wide turn radius. I think it's like 290 degrees or something, which is pretty cool if you think about it. But it has like 8 or 10 inch inflatable wheels, which is great because what that basically does is it helps alleviate a lot of that extra weight that you put on it. And it's huge for going through like, let's say a bumpy terrain or a rocky terrain or grass or mulch or something. Whereas a dolly with sink, this can just wheel right over it. And I've loaded up probably 300-400 pounds worth of stuff in them before, and I wheel it through a backyard with no problem. They're like $200 at Home Depot or Lowe's. And if you do a lot of like yard debris stuff, I would recommend checking that out. And then the next thing is a speed pack. I think speed packs are probably one of the best things that somebody's ever invented. Me, my helper, were talking about it today. So a speed pack is a giant open-end box, or you could call it a commercial bin if you want. And the cool thing about it is it does fold up into a very large flat box. It's like 2 or 3 correlated thickness of boxes, and then it has staples running down the side that are heavy duty. Pretty much, it's pretty hard to break this box unless it gets really, really wet. And even then, if you let it air dry, it still holds pretty well. But you can usually find them at moving supply warehouses. I don't know where else you would get them unless you are able to go by a retail store and like pick out some of their freight bins after like a replenishment day or something. But usually a moving supply warehouse would have them. And the cool thing about them is you slap them right on top of a 4-wheeler dolly, and you basically fill it up with whatever you want and wheel it out to your truck. Either leave it in the bin or take it out and go back and run another trip. It's like 2 or 3 other trips. So for every one trip you're running with that, I can fit like 10 or 15 trash bags in it versus either carrying them out or maybe a couple at a time in a trash can. It just saves time, and that could be a huge factor when you're at a storage unit, senior living facility, or apartment building, much like the mattress bars. So definitely recommend those if you're able to find them in your area. And then the other items are a little bit smaller in size, which is good because that means they're more accessible and they're easier to store in your truck. But the first one is to have some kind of either moving bends, which I got one. This is a moving band. You can buy these on Amazon. You can get them at moving supply warehouses. You can probably find them on other moving like websites. But it's basically a giant stretchy band that you use to wrap around furniture. Now, I like using these when I have to bring out, let's say, a large cabinet or a dresser to help contain the doors from like flinging open or from the drawers from sliding out, especially if you're on a hand truck going downstairs. So these can come in handy. They're pretty cheap depending on where you buy them from, and they are kind of hard to break. You have to really overstretch it and then like nick it with something in order to break it. So those are good. Another thing is a ratchet strap. You most likely use them for your truck or trailer anyways, but a ratchet strap can be good to use to pair it with a hand truck when you are bringing a larger piece either up or downstairs, or even just a large piece in general. If you want that extra leverage, maybe you don't have help with you to kind of push some of that weight towards you to lean back with it. A ratchet strap will help mimic an appliance dolly, and that can be a very large help. And then you can also use a drag pad when you're dealing with larger items in a tight doorway, tight hallway, or maybe it's just small enough that with a hand truck going out a diagonal, you don't quite have that leverage to pull through, or with a 4-wheeler, maybe it makes it too tall to go through the doorway. If you bring a moving blanket with you, fold it up in like long ways, like a hot dog style, lay the piece down on side so it's standing up vertically or whichever way it needs to go to fit, and you just drag it throughout the house. It helps prevent scratching of the floor, and it helps give you that maximum potential of the amount of room you have surrounding the piece, and that could be a huge help in a lot of different situations. The one thing I would recommend is make sure to keep it as clean as possible. Try not to lay down in really dirty areas that pick up dirt or little rocks because it is fabric. So if it holds onto that and then you drag it through, let's say, hardwood floors, you're probably going to scratch the crap out of it. So try to keep it clean if you can. Try to strictly use it just for drag pads. And I promise you something like that would really come in handy when you have a bigger item that's just too much for like a dolly, or even just too hard to carry with just leverages. You just slap it on and slide it. Mixing super easy. So those are the things I would definitely check into. Of course, you can start off super cheap and buy cheap products and, build up as you go. But I would start with those few items if you can. Just in general for making things easier. It helps expedite time. It saves time. If you can get good at using equipment, it'll make your job a lot less stressful. It makes heavy items a lot easier. and it just overall just alleviates a lot of stress. So I would definitely look into that, especially if you're solo. If you run your jobs on your own, whether you need to, you have to, or you want to, doesn't matter why, I would definitely look into the SpeedPak and the mattress bars for sure. Those other three little guys can be very helpful, but they're not 100% necessary. But definitely need a hand truck and a four-wheeler. And I would probably get a ratchet strap just for the, like, just pair it with your hand truck, because having an appliance dolly related strategy can be very helpful. So hopefully those tips help if you haven't thought of those already. I'll try to throw up some pictures on the screen of each item and a rough price point for like a decent quality one of just what to expect. And then you'll have to kind of do your own research and figure out where to buy them from. Actually, if you pause the screen on each item and screenshot it, you can use Google Lens to look up that specific item, and then you can use that to kind of find out where you can buy them from. So just to save you guys a little bit of time there. But we're almost through this dump line finally, and I will see you guys next time.